Again, Lei Ting-Jie does not know what to expect from Zhu Wanjun. She does not know whether Zhu Wanjun wants to push for that win, or she is content with a quick draw or a draw and move it to tomorrow for some tie breaks. Hoy, yeah. What do you predict, Jen?
Well, I do predict that it's going to be a safe game. But I think that the players have not made any short draws so far. So I think it's just going to be one of those games where it's pretty safe. But if Zhu Wanjun finds an opportunity, she will pounce. And there we have it, yeah. D4, D5.
Yep, and so, knight f3 on the board. So Zhu Wanjun delaying with pushing the c-pawn 2 squares. And are we going to see... Okay, which is Lei Ting-Jie so far copies. And is the bishop going to come out to f4? E3 played.
Oh, okay.
This is not the most ambitious move. And in fact, I think Tan Zhongyi employed something very similar when she played Lei Ting-Jie in their match for the candidates finals. And, well, we can see from the camera that Lei Ting-Jie, not surprised at all, and immediately playing her favorite move when she has this pawn structure, c5.
Yeah, I mean, when your opponent plays more on the passively side, let's go get some. Or let's go get some center control. Plays e6, the idea of recooling that pawn with the bishop. Right here, and looks like we're getting those moves now. Okay, b4, holding on to it.
Well, that's a very committal idea, actually, to play b4. Let me check. b4. Okay, very much in the realm of theory. A favorite of Liam Le, actually, top Vietnamese grandmaster. Very strong. He's played it a few times. He's played it against Aronian. Also against Wesley So. And obviously white does have a pawn advantage, but of course it's going to get destabilized. And I say that, and there I see that Lei Ting-Jie has played a5, which is the main move, and we're expecting Zhu Wanjun to hold on to that pawn with c3.
You mentioned Liam Le. He's well known here in the United States as he is a Webster grad, and he's also the director of their program, actually, as Grandmaster Susan Polgar retired from coaching the chess club Dynasty, and Liam Le has taken over.
And we see pawn takes pawn on plate, and pawn takes pawn, and I'm expecting b6. And there we see b6 played. I mean, black's moves are very straightforward. White has won a pawn, is trying to hold on to it, and black is like, no, you're not going to get that pawn. And, well, okay, some big moves here. And we can also see players and people in chat also having their fingers crossed for a decisive result. Yes, that would be definitely something that we all want to see.
Why? I want to wake up in the middle of the night again tomorrow to see all the playoffs, Jovi. You know, I can go either way. Again, a win-win for us. It's good either way. But let's see what happens. So after this move b6, this is all about attacking the pawn chain, right? Because white is still underdeveloped. So you can't just take on b6 because there's bishop takes b4 check. Little in-between move before we recapture on b6. Instead, it looks like bishop b5 check has already been played. Oh, and we've got a few more moves on the board, don't we? No, okay, I'm sorry, excuse me. After bishop b5 check, just now, bishop d7, I believe, was played.
Bishop d7, and so far, again, checking the databases, very much theory. Liam Le, as you mentioned, Webster graduate, also in charge of the Webster training program. He has played this against Vidit, and also I see a long list of players like Kramnik, Bluebaum, and bishop takes bishop played again the main move. And it does appear that Ju Wanjun has chosen a very forcing variation, knight bd7, and here after this move the top idea is to play a4 and just to get this pawn majority there on the queen side.
Wait, what is
very
a4?
spicy.
Why is a4? Let me try to understand that move, because it's knight bd7. I understand a4's theory, but let's try to understand why we're playing it. So if we play c6 in this position, again, there's bishop b4 check, and correct, I guess that's annoying. Suppose if we play bishop d2, even that line though, I am a little curious if c6. Well, they are playing moves fast and furious, so I guess we can keep up with them. And I'll philosophize about the opening later. But we have a4 and so many fast moves here, Jovi. B takes d5, b5. Okay, so that's part of the idea of this a4, that we can play this move b5 and queen a5 check doesn't win the pawn back. Okay, now I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is a really, really dangerous variation for both sides. Black, of course, has this overwhelming pawn center there in the middle of the board. But in the endgame, if it gets to an endgame, these pawns, a4 and b5, are going to be killers. There's no hiding that. So big decision here for Lei Ting-Jie. I'm just, again, looking at the database and saying the most popular move is the most natural move, to go bishop d6 and in order to support an e5 and obviously get the king to safety. c4 is another idea that has been played to lengthen this dark squared bishop's diagonal. And get this one, I wouldn't be surprised to see Lei Ting-Jie play this. g5 has been played.
Whoa, that's now if she plays that move, we might have to adjust our prediction that the game's going to be quiet, drawish, because g5, bang. I presume the idea is that if knight takes pawn, there's rook g8, and we are eyeing that g pawn, because white hasn't castled yet, so kind of punishing this very, very focused queen side expansion here. And after rook g8, I guess you would be in a bit of trouble, actually, because moving the knight and allowing us to crash through rook takes g2 can't be very good for white.
No, exactly. It's not going to end well. I mean, after all, just take a look at white's king safety. Something that I bang on about like so many times. The king is nervous king. You always have to justify your placement of the pieces, and this king just doesn't have a home. So yes, in theory, these guys are very good in the endgame, but before the endgame, as Alexandra Kostanyk's father reminded us, the gods have placed the middle game. And yeah, if this one survives, it will be a miracle. And so I'm not expecting knight takes g5 if g5 does make an appearance, but certainly this is a really forcing. Let's go back to the game position, because Lei Ting-Jie has taken a pause, so this is a really forcing variation, and it's certainly caught Lei Ting-Jie unawares. It's very sharp, something that Ju Wanjun hasn't been doing straight out of the opening. She's been, especially these last two games with the white pieces, she's just been playing very natural positions, just trying to get a game that she can then outplay Lei Ting-Jie from. Here, this is war immediately from the beginning.
It is, and I really am kind of surprised. I expected something more balanced today. Instead, it's there's just so much going on, on white side. What do we have going for us? Well, we got this beautiful pawn on b5, right? So that's definitely something to write home about. If we can consolidate the position and start pressuring black and pushing those connected pass pawns forward, we could win the game in tremendous fashion, making an extra queen to become the next women's world champion and chess queen. But on the other hand, black is going to, as you mentioned, play for that middle game and that center control. And look at this. She's playing the move queen c7. I don't think that was one of the main moves that you suggested, was it?
No, it wasn't. And again, looking at the database, I can see that knight e4 had been played. Rook a7 had even been tried. And this one is way down on the list, queen c7. And I'm kind of curious as to why it wasn't so popular. Maybe the queen didn't necessarily belong on c7. Maybe if you'd backed it up with bishop d6, the queen might find herself wanting to be on e7, or maybe even on b6 at some point. But okay, queen c7 it is, and now it is Zhu Wenjun's turn to unpack. And I'm sure her main preparation would have centered either on g5, which is again the most active thrust in the position, or she would have looked at how to play after bishop d6. And I'm kind of curious, so I'm looking at what was White's plan after the most natural move, and it was to go after bishop d6. The plan was simply to go, okay, so White's plan, so instead of after queen c7, because the reason I'm talking about this is because often you do comparisons in your mind. So bishop d6 was the main move, and there White was wanting to fight for control over e5 by playing bishop b2. Ironically enough, even g5 has been played in this position. But okay, let's say black plays very naturally, and then the plan is simply to go knight to bd2, and then queen c7 is a move, and then castles is played, and black's main plan is to go c4. So this, we might just see a simple transposition. And
yeah, I see. So c4, we're threatening the c3, and then queen c2 prevents it. And okay, so again, there's that tension where black has beautiful center control, and the more trades I think that are in this position, the more it will end up favoring white, right? So black wants to keep that potential for complication. I see this idea like knight c5 to d3, which looks really nagging. Of course, there is a knight on f6 that the bishop on f6 could take to change the pawn structure. Not a move that I'd be super keen to make unless I had a good follow-up, but definitely something to keep us on our toes. Bishop d6 hasn't been played yet, right? So it's white's move here, and after queen c7, we're expecting either castles or maybe a bishop b2 before castling, before officially revealing the address of the king.
Right. So yeah, it could be queen c2, could be bishop b2, and we have Cartier Tank telling us that g5 is a key move in many of these positions, and that's very good to know, because I must admit g5 is not something I would instinctively play, and there we see Lei Ting-Jie opt for bishop to d6.
Right. Well, bishop d2.
It's very important that the knight comes to d2. Oops, not like that. The knight comes to d2. If you put the knight on c3, it just blocks in this bishop on b2, which Jennifer has highlighted is such a beautiful piece, and it's on a wonderfully long diagonal. And there we see castles from Zhu Wenjun. So it looks like we are heading into one of the main positions, and that's why the players are playing really quickly.
That's right. Well, bishop to b2, very discouraging for your idea to play g5, right? With that luscious diagonal from a1 to h8 kind of staring back at you. So this move, I like bishop d6, and it looks like we also have castles on the board.
We do, which is interesting because, okay, so I'm looking over at the computer suggestion, and you would never guess what the computer's main suggestion is. G5.
even with our bishop on b2, I really thought I'd get you to stop playing that, but apparently not. So wait, what's going on? So I get the main thing that I can't take on g5 because you take a even more important pawn from my king shelter with bishop takes h2 check. So
right,
and then meanwhile you're threatening g4 yourself with the same idea.
Totally. So, okay, bishop takes, but maybe Zhu Wenjun by playing super quickly, because we saw in the other lines that white was waiting. So say, for instance, we saw that white was playing knight d2 first and not castling so quickly. So in this position, this was the main move. and then meeting c4 with queen c2. But Zhu Wenjun in playing castles does allow this g5 idea, and now I'm seeing here that this position has been reached 4 times in my database, and everyone, and I mean everyone, has played g5. So, and it has, black has a good score, 3 points out of 4. Last game was in 2020. So every chat is also going, all roads point to g5. But then I also saw a point earlier from someone in chat that said, do you want to play g5 in the final game of the Women's World Championship? And some people are praying for it, saying, please, 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 give us some fireworks. We want that last huzzah, But I don't know whether I would have the guts to play g5. And again,
well,
it feels really committal, right?
I think it's all about how much she's prepared it or how much she's looked at this exact type of position before, because if so, yeah, let's go. But, to kind of like conjure it and go for it when it's Zhu Wenjun who's surprised her, seems like a risk she might not want to take. She might just want to castle, which of course would then eliminate the possibility of playing g5, right? Once you castle, g5 is off the table. So big moment here for Lei Tingche. Any other moves besides castles and g5? When you ask me, guess what the computer move is? I thought you were going to say something like king e7.
That's a really Caro-Kann move. Did you ever play the Caro-Kann, Jen?
only by accident. Like when I was trying to play c5 and went out too late the night before, What have I done?
King e7 is something that you could see very nicely in the Caro-Kann in the main lines. You put your king in e7, you move your rook over, and and then the king runs all the way to f8. I like the idea. And the king e7 is bold. And I just see a comment on from chat. This is like, there's been like 2 games where Lei hasn't sacrificed a pawn. And that is true. That is super true about Lei. We've seen her time and time again. She's not afraid to sacrifice material. She wants activity. And the fact that she's taken a pause here and hasn't instinctively reached for that king and castled suggests to me that she knows about the idea of g5 and she is thinking about it.
What about just e5?
And certainly consider it. e5 could be another option. Again, g5 or e5. e5, yeah, let's have a look. e5 looks good, right? After all, e5 sets up this beautiful center. I mean, who can resist the allure of that one?
Well, not only that, but the same idea of g5 in that I can destabilize your knight on f3 and take on h2. It has some of the benefits of g5, but it doesn't irreparably weaken your diagonals. So yeah, this move certainly kind of jumps out, but it does weaken that pawn on d5 and that square on d5 with your king in the center. So I know you were hoping to put that B knight on d2 or that queen's knight on d2, but now the move knight c3 does really hop out at me because just hitting that pawn on d5.
Yeah, totally. And I'm thinking, first of all, you have to deal with the idea of e4. So maybe you go h3 and g5 at the same time. Sorry, e5 at the same time does block in these two. Ooh, what is wrong with my arrows today? Kings do not move like knights and bishops do not move like that. But anyhow, so this pawn on e5, it does have the consequence of just jamming up the queen and the bishop. So you can make moves like h3 and you do rule out g5 for the rest of all days. But like you suggested, once you've dealt with the threat, maybe knight c3. And this is the question.
Maybe I could play knight c3 right away, and then if e4, knight takes d5.
Oh, you want to go? Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, I forget you're super tactical. I remember playing Jen many years ago, and yeah, she just demolished me. It was like bam, 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 bam. I was like, oh, that was aggressive. And yeah, so E4. Yeah, knight takes d5. Very good. That is a killer.
Because if pawn takes f3, knight takes c7, and if knight takes d5, there's queen. There is that queen takes d5, and the rook on a8 is hanging. See, this is why you got to play castles or king e7 to avoid this type of variation where you're just losing the rook on a8, right? Okay, so knight c3. Knight c3 looks pretty good. Then what do you do here?
It does.
I mean, knight b6.
I guess I have to go d4.
Okay.
I definitely have to go d4 again.
I see. All right, and if I take you, taking back with the e pawn looks very risky with your king on e8. So, what are you going to do if I just take?
Takes. Yeah, you have to go c takes.
Okay.
And even then. This is a complicated position. I mean, it's complicated regardless, but this one is wild. It's like, where do you put the knight? Do you put the knight on e2 and try to kind of go to g3 and maybe look at f5? Or do you just kind of take a step back, go knight b1, go knight d2, and then try and put your knight on c4? And both sides are following the policy of restraint. You know, white needs to restrain these pawns in the center. Black also needs to restrain these two on the queen side. But it does feel, for the time being, Black will have the initiative. Because when you control the center, you just control more squares, and also you have greater flexibility for the pieces. And I had a quote, I was given a quote by someone, and I've been waiting for the right time to say it. And this might actually be a type of position to say it. It goes, this is so complicated, like running through a dynamite factory with a burning match. That is this type of position.
Wow. Yeah. Not the sedate game that we expected in game 12. They are coming to play, and we love to see it. It's funny. I'm just trying. I'm looking at this position, this analysis position we have up here, and I'm like, I wish I could make b6 work. Because like if I play b6 and you play knight b6, I have knight b5, and that looks like really good. But because I'm going to take on d6 and then take on e5, and your king on e8 is going to be so sad that they're not castled yet, right?
Yeah,
but of course, you can be a huge party pooper by, in the initial position when I play b6, simply taking with the queen, and I just don't have any sort of follow-up.
Yeah, keeping the knight on d7 and keeping the bishop on d6 just to stop any bishop a3 ideas. Yeah, but these ideas are very much on the board because they would work if that knight wasn't on d7. So it's definitely an idea to have in mind for the future. It's wild. And yeah, so going back to the position, this is it. This is the moment that Lei Ting-Jie is thinking about. It's not the quick draw that we were expecting. This is not a stable, secure position for either side. And both sides really do have to play really aggressively, really actively. And we're anticipating either e5, or if Lei Ting-Jie knows her theory, she's played this position a few times, there is also this really instructive g7, g5 idea. If Lei Ting-Jie doesn't quite trust these pawn advances, she can, of course, also castle kingside, and the game will resume against just down those well-trodden opening moves. What do you predict? G5. Or I'm meeting my wife. You can't write that. Sorry, I just saw that quote.
I know him. He's not married. Don't worry.
Okay.
I think that's going to be e5. I feel like e5 because I don't like the line. When I look at the most concrete line after Black plays e5, knight c3, d4, and I didn't really find anything too exciting there for white. It looks quite good for Black. So if I can't play knight c3 and I just have to develop with like knight d2, then hello center. Why not? Yeah. Why not play an aggressive move that doesn't have quite as much devastating risk to our position as g5? Well, of course, if you're analyze the position extremely extensively, g5 might be your selection, but e5 just looks so compelling, grabbing the full center. You can't even try to hit me back with much success. So that's my prediction. Now, what if we just castle first? The difference there is that maybe after castle, now knight c3 is playable,
D2.
stopping you. Oh, you still want to play knight d2? Okay.
You're probably going to go knight d2, and I guess after c4, you got your queen c2's kind of ideas. Or if you want to keep everything flexible. Actually, one of the advantages, I was thinking about this because you can use this idea against the Blumenfeld. I saw this recommendation that was basically after e5, you can play e4. And you just got to meet them in the center. And after pawn takes pawn, the whole idea is you ruined your center, my friend. And you've got ideas like knight c4. You've also got ideas like knight g5 in the air. Don't want that. And if you provoke that pawn to come forward, oops, how did I get there? I don't know, but I did. We haven't even seen this line. Sorry, I have no idea what happened there. I must have been a bit trigger happy with my mouse. Okay, so after pawn takes pawn, after e4, what I want to say is after d4, you concede the c4 square for the knight to jump. And these pawns, they're very impressive, but they can't move. And slowly but surely, you can kind of see a world where a5 comes your way and then b6, and these two pawns on the queen side start marching up the board. So that is one concrete idea of knight d2.
Look at this, or don't look at this, as Lei Ting-Che is actually covering her face right now, and I believe she's on move. As this seems to be an expression that says, I am trying to remember what I looked at in this position. What do you think? What is it? Or is it just a reset, like a brain reset? What is that expression? Or what is that? What is that?
Yeah, I think that is, I am desperately trying to remember my theory, remember my plans, and also not quite peekaboo strategy. I'm sorry, chat is too funny today. I might be clumsy with my mouse, like coming up with all sorts of positions, but chat is on point. And I just, just simple, just trying to remember and just trying to not let the tension, the pressure get to her. And I think it's a good strategy when you're feeling nervous, because I'm sure the players are both feeling the tension. Just cover your face and kind of like take some deep breaths and just calm yourself down and just fill yourself with that quiet confidence that says you can handle these type of positions. And big moment here, g5, e5, castles.
Yeah, king e7. I mean, there's so many options, Jovi, and that's why the great players are so good at sensing those critical positions. And we see that Lei Ting-Che's been thinking for quite a while right now. I think over 10 minutes on this move, and it makes sense because this is it. And I know the chat is very excited about g5. They said, I hope she wins if she plays g5. I have to say your knight d2 e4 line, Jovi, was really making me a little less excited about e5, because the thing with pawn to e5 is that if my bishop is then stuck behind a lot of pawns on dark squares, it could be very unpleasant position to play. So if after e5 knight d2, there's no way for me to what was the line you were showing again? Was it was e5 h3?
Yeah, so e5 has the great, if you do it now, it has the great point that e4 is coming your way, so you can't make this very